Tanchikiwa Mara Dishnakashan. Hello everyone, this is Mara here. I'm Program Manager at North Island Métis Association. I am here to share with you today how to do fish scale art. So this is one of the brochures that is on our website at www.northnimat.com. And so this is the video to accompany the brochure on fish scale art. Fish scale art is a relatively new Métis art form, and it helps us to utilize all pieces of the animal that we take. And so these scales are from whitefish, which is a traditional Métis food source. It is a deep, cold lake fish that is in the northern Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba area. And they have very large scales, and so these I harvested off of fish that I purchased from Superstore because we don't have the fish natively here where we are, and cleaned the scales, and then we made fish fry out of the fish, which was delicious. And then I made fish leather out of the skin, so we used everything but the bones of this fish. So I'm going to teach you how to make a flower using fish scales, but you could use it. I have seen some beautiful art pieces using the scales in many different ways. But this is what I'm going to share with you today, and at least you'll learn how to work with the fish scales. So I have a small piece of felt. I have my dyed fish scales that I was just soaking in some water to soften them up. I have two different colors. You can dye them with RIT dye. You can also use more natural dyes as well that I have not yet experimented with. And then I just have a few beads. This is probably way more than I need, but these are going to be the center of my flower. So I am going to start with a triple back stitch. So I have Nymo D thread on a size 10 or 11 beading needle, and it is single threaded. So that just means that I've got a long end and a short tail. So I've got no knot on the end, but I'm going to do a triple back stitch. So this is just going in and out on the back side of my material, and you can see I've not gone through at all. It's just the back part, and I'm going to pull it almost all the way through and leave a little bit of a tail that is kind of hard to see because it's almost the same color. And then I'm going to go back through, in and out in roughly the same spot that I did the first stitch for 2. Don't pull too hard because you don't want that tail to come out. And then I'm going to do that one more time for 3. So 3 times because it's a triple back stitch. And now I can pull nice and tight, and that is not going anywhere. So now I'm going to start on the outside of the flower. So you're going to start from the outside and work your way in. So I'm going to come up where I want the outermost part of my flower to be, and I'm going to start with this dark purple color. And petals on the outside of the flower are much larger, so I'm going to work with my biggest scales first. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this fish scale and I'm going to go through with my needle. Let's make sure that you can see that well. I'm going to go through really close to the edge. You want to be a little ways away so that you don't tear the fish scale, but you don't want it too far away. So then I'm just going to pull it all the way through. And then I'm going to go back down where I came up pretty much. And that's just going to hold that in place. So that's my first one. So now I'm going to overlap them. So I'm going to go about a third of the way across the fish scale. So if you divided it up into 3s, I'm going to be roughly at a third. And I'm going to add the next scale. So here's my next purple one. I am going through very close to the edge. And then going back down through the material very close to where I came up from initially. So now you can see that those two petals have overlapped, or the two fish scales. So now I'm going to come back up about a third of the way from the edge of that fish scale, and I'm going to attach my next one. And back down. A third of the way from the edge. Add my next petal. And back down through the material. I'm going to try and keep this flower pretty small so that I can finish it quickly, just so you can see all the steps from start to finish. You want to make sure that you're pulling your thread not too fast, because the fish scales will get twisted, and you don't want to tear them because they are quite thin. And because they've been soaking, they're also quite soft, so if the thread gets wrapped around the fish scale, it'll crumple it pretty easily if you pull it really too fast. So if I was doing this at home, I would probably do 6 to 8 layers of petals, or of scales. But I am just going to show you 2 layers in this video, just so you can see how it looks with the 2 different colors. But you don't have to do different colors. You don't even have to dye them. You could have purple on the outside and white on the inside, like just the natural color. So you can see I've completed 1 circle in the purple, and now I'm going to do the next layer. So you're just going to move slightly closer in. So you can see I am pretty close to the outside layer of fish scale. And this is just going to overlap them to give them lots of depth to the petals. So now I'm going to switch to pink. It's the same thing. You're just slightly closer in the center of the flower. Still overlapping 1/3 of the scale. Be careful not to catch the thread on any of the fish scales, because now there's a lot of them. The really cool thing about the flowers is right now they are quite flat, but as the scales dry, they will curl up, and so you'll complete your project and leave it for a couple of hours, and once the scales are fully dried, your flower will have some dimension to it. And so if I finish a piece in the evening and then I go to bed and I wake up the next morning, the flower looks completely different, and you you don't really know what to expect, because the scales will act how they want. So this can add a nice three-dimensional effect to your artwork. I am working on a fire bag right now that I have added a bit of fish scale work to. Okay, so I've got one layer of pink and one layer of purple, and I'm gonna say that that is finished, just to keep the video short. So now I'm going to add the beads in the center, and so these beads that I add are gonna cover the thread that you can see. So right now the thread is getting covered by the layers of petals, but then in the center I'm just going to add, I've come up in the middle of the flower, the middle of the empty space of that flower, and I've put one bead on, and then I'm going to go back down. And then I'm going to come up one bead's width away from that bead, and then I will add 7 beads. So I've got 7 beads on my needle here. And this is always the trickiest part when learning how to do flowers. And this is the same with doing beadwork. So this would be your center of your flower and beadwork as well. You've put your one single bead on, and now I've put my 7 beads on. You can see the thread goes out. So my needle is over here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in that first bead that I put on of the 7. But you want to point your needle in the direction of the other 6 beads. So only go through one bead, but point it in the direction of the other 6. And then you're going to pull it. And this is going to create a circle. Which you can now tack down. So I'm coming up on the other side of the thread from when I initially came up, which will hold that circle in place. And now I'm going to tack down each bead in that circle, which means I'm going to come up on the inside of the bead, and I'm going to go over the thread, and I'm going to go back down. And I'm going to do that between each bead, because otherwise these beads are really loose right now and they'll get caught on something and get ripped off. So come up on the inside, pull all the way through, and then go back down on the outside of the thread. It doesn't matter if you come up on the outside or the inside first, as long as you go over the thread. So you can come up on the outside and go down on the inside as well. I will often alternate wherever the needle comes up. And now that is finished. So then I'm going to finish it off with a triple back stitch on the back side, which is going in and out in the same spot 3 times. So that was 1, 2, and 3. Then I will cut that off there. And there is a fish scale flower. So you could use that on any number of things. You could make earrings, a pendant, you could add it onto a fire bag like I'm doing. You could make a piece that you frame and put up on the wall. So I hope you enjoyed that video. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Kawapamatin mina, Marcy.